Thing that Riaz and I really believe in. We think the central concept behind the book is to provide psychological safety in order to ensure that each person entering into a high stakes conversation will get to have their voices heard, that there's reasonable conversation, that we're not jumping to conclusions about what the other person is really trying to say. That are taught to us in the book to really get to the truth, to get to the bottom of it, to find, a good common ground, and also to process a problem and come to a solution as well. Engagement, as you know, like we talk about it all the time, but engagement is super important to us. We all know that if we feel heard, we feel as if we are valued as members of the team, and then we feel like we're making a contribution to the team as well. And ultimately, that's one of the most important things, because for us, it's important that we foster a culture and an environment where people feel free to share their ideas and concepts. And it's something, Iliana's nodding, I can see that, because this is something that we've been talking about quite extensively in the creative team. How to really speak up and share our ideas and not be afraid to talk about the things that we might think are a bit silly. But actually, in a much deeper level, and that's what this book is all about, it's about perform at a high station. And what I mean by that is, and this will be familiar to all of you because you've read the book, it's the steps to take to make sure that the conversation is handled properly, that we come out the other end with a feeling that there's mutual amicability, which I think is super important. And I really believe that we can find this free method of communication where we all feel valid, where we all feel as if we can enter tricky conversations confidently and respect open dialogue, as a result of reading this book. I just want to ask you guys, and feel free to answer however, what do you think the outcome of a well-executed crucial conversation should be? The outcome.
I think common ground would be ideal, going into it with separate kind of ideas and finding where the two parties meet in an amicable way, in a productive way, that benefits all parties.
Excellent. Yeah, totally. Anyone else?
I think it can be like a trust building moment as well. When you have those direct moments, it can really leave you guys feeling like there's more of a trust building exercise almost happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
There shouldn't be like any animosity or like bruised egos after a crucial conversation.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
A clear action path, like once you've agreed and everything, like if you're trying to accomplish something, then an action path that everyone agrees on, and like everyone knows what their role is.
Absolutely. Yeah, a very clear action plan after the conversation will take everything that you've learned in the conversation and as to Matthias's point, the amicable agreement that might come about at the end of that conversation. If you're quick to make that action plan straight after the call, and really organize that, then we're obviously going to get an optimal outcome from that. Brilliant. Anyone else? Okay. All right. So during this session, it's going to be much like the previous one that we did. We're going to discuss what we learned in groups. Okay. Now, just to be perfectly candid here, some of the questions, there is a question in here. One of the group questions is a little trickier than the others. So, but I think that's a good thing. I've stuck with questions that were asked in the actual book review, but then I've also kind of stepped outside of the lines a little bit there as well, just to kind of add a little bit of an additional challenge there. So the questions will be presented to the group in just a minute. You'll have 15 minutes during the breakout to discuss your assigned question with your group. You can think about how you can apply your learnings to your everyday life and work. Remember to take note as well of your main points, because obviously, when we come back into the team call, we'll ask you to share your thoughts and your main points with the team. Okay, so group one. Share an example of when. Now no one knows who. I don't know group one.
So how about this? I'll say the group and then we'll give them the question. They can take a picture. Okay.
Oh yeah, great. I like that.
So
Yeah.
Group one is Fernando, Leslie, Michael, and Erica.
Brilliant.
So you want to take a picture of this? Yeah. I think Michael's frozen. Share an example of when you could have applied what you have learned from crucial conversations for a better outcome.
Tell your story to the team about the situation.
How you handle the high stakes conversation and what the outcome was. Look at that. We're playing it back and forth there. Discuss how you could have improved your approach for a better result. So see, smooth transition, eh, guys? There you go. Okay. Number 2. Blossom, Ileana, Khalil, Sonali. What are the 3 most important lessons that you learned from the book, and how will you apply them to your life and your work moving forward? Okay, number 3 is Carla, Christina, Matthias, Roy. What did you like or dislike about this book? Please provide 2 likes and 2 dislikes. Be specific and expand as best as you can to why something was great or off, in your opinion. Okay. And group 4 is Allison, Vanny, and Vasvi. What did you learn from this book? Was there an aha moment for you, a concept that changed your perception dramatically? How will this book influence your decisions moving forward? Pretty intense questions, Michael. I like them. They're crucial conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Pun intended. Any questions before we go into the breakouts? All right. Well then, let's do it.
Okay, so hopefully I don't cut in and out here and confuse things further. Okay, right. So if we start with group 1, which was the group that I was in, maybe I'll just go around the group here and get them to share their thoughts. And their question was, share an example of when you could have applied what you have learned from crucial conversations for a better outcome. Tell your story to the team about the situation, how you handled the high stakes conversation, and what the outcome was. Discuss how you could have improved your approach for a better result. Okay, so I'm going to start with Erica.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, so I'm going to share a personal story. So basically, I grew up in, I was born in Canada, and I grew up in Canada. My parents were not that. They came to Canada, so they had different values, different ways of growing up, and traditions and things like that. So as I was growing up here, there was always some sort of conflict or misunderstanding or miscommunication. And as I grew up here, for example, learning English, my English would improve, but then my Cantonese would not, would diminish. And then communicating with my family would be continue to be a little bit more difficult as I was going away for school and meeting new friends and establishing my life the North American way. So with that being said, even to this day, there are situations or times where I would get into conflict or not agree with certain thinkings or ways of or behaviors or ways of life that my parents or my mom would have, and I tend to stay silent and not say anything in these situations, and that's just so that I don't rock the boat or cause tension or, you know, more difficulties. So there was a situation where like my mom had presented an idea or an opinion, and I did not disagree. I did not agree with it. And knowing this, after reading this book, I decided to kind of like address it and just kind of, and so address it and like bring up the point that, you know, maybe you know, this is where I'm coming from my experiences, from my experiences, my thought thinking, from how I grew up here and what I was exposed to, and maybe you have a different perspective from your experience, your history, etc. So after having that conversation and like actually opening up and realizing like where we came from, and like because each of us as people bring to the table different perspectives and different angles and experiences, and that's very important for how we like move forward. And then so after having this conversation, it actually like improved our relationship too, because like now we understand a lot more where each other is coming from, and although we may not agree with the topic, like we may have opposing opinions, it's okay. It's the fact that we all now understand, we've presented our perspective, our information, and we all understand where we're coming from, and there's no like hard feelings or personal, we're not like taking it personal type of thing. Yeah.
How about that? I know, right? It's fantastic, isn't it?
What a profound, that's it, meeting's over, Erica. You just like, dropped the mic. Wow, that was really, really amazing.
It really was. And the conversation we had as a group, there was I think 3 of us had a personal point that we wanted to, a personal example that we wanted to run through, and one of us had a professional one. So it was really interesting, I think, what came up. You know, so Leslie, you said something that I thought was really cool right at the end of our conversation. What was it that you mentioned?
Oh, I just said that listening isn't about agreeing. Like, you don't have to agree with each other at the end of your conversation, just as long as you hear each other out and understand the other person's side of things for their story, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree.
Yeah, you don't have to agree. It's just, and that's it. And actually, I think that's an amazing point, because the point of crucial conversations is not to make sure that basically we all agree. It's to make sure that we accept the other person's point of view, get to the truth, process it, deal with it, and figure out a way of getting to a point where both parties are happy. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there for our group, because I wanted to take one really good example of a personal situation there that could have been handled better, knowing about, you know, what we've learned from crucial conversations. And I think Erica's really epitomizes that. Okay, so moving on to group 2.
Yep.
Who do we have in?
Go.
Yes, Sonali. Go ahead.
Erica, thank you so much for sharing that. That was amazing. All right, our question for group 2, we had to share 3 learnings from this book, like straight away from our report, 3 learnings from the book and how we are going to apply to our professional or personal life. It is very much kind of aligned to what Erica mentioned there. The first one, focus on what your goal is. Emotions does not help, because honestly, if we get emotional, it's more likely or not, it's a waste of time and effort for no good reason. It is extremely important. And I also think this goal is very much aligned to 2 of our values, which is no ego and growth mindset, right? When you're getting on a meeting or when we are discussing something, it is very important to not have that ego, just like focus on the goal. What is our end goal, and how as a team or as a group we can go ahead and achieve that. So that's very important. Second is, do not start making up stories always wait to hear the story from the other side, because when we are having these crucial conversations, that can only happen when both the parties feel safe, right? None of us. So if me and Riaz, we are in a conversation and then I feel intimidated and judged, I will never be able to say my side of story. And at the same time, if Riaz will start, and I'm just giving an example here, if Riaz starts judging me, he will never have an open mind to listen what I'm talking about. So it is second lesson, do not start making up stories, always give that opportunity and hear from the other side. Third is not to avoid the crucial conversation, because it's not about sweeping it under the rug. It does not help anybody. And I guess as Leslie and Michael, you guys were also mentioning, it is not always possible that all of us would agree or everybody would be happy. It's not about keeping everybody happy, but safely putting the point forward, which is beneficial for everybody who are involved in the conversation, right? But that does not also mean that, oh, I want to keep, say, Jackie or Michael happy, so I just won't say anything uncomfortable, or I won't say which is bothering me, right? So not to avoid crucial conversation is also one of the lessons which we learned. Yeah.
Brilliant. Very comprehensive, Sonali. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
We've
I don't know if Blossom or Ileana or Khalil, you guys wanted to add something?
I think you covered it really well.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, then in that case, we'll skip over to group 3. Who was in group 3? Who's the spoken person? It's Roy Tanaka.
Oh, yes. I'll go.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, what was our? So our question was, what did you like or dislike about the book? Please provide 2 likes and dislikes and be specific. Okay, so as far as likes, we really enjoyed the scenarios that were presented in the book, the examples that they provided, because they felt a lot more realistic and tend not to catastrophize situations like some other self-help books that we read in the past, and then other examples as well. It felt more realistic, and then in fact, like certain scenarios we may have actually experienced ourselves. Like more specifically, like the sort of like the fight or flight examples, and like having to like wanting to go into that fight mentality and allowing us to step outside our relationships and seeing things from like different perspectives. So that was interesting. And being more relatable, and it allows us to easily insert ourselves into that situation so that we can gain some better perspective. So yeah, so like mainly the storytelling was quite good in the. As far as dislikes, we didn't actually have that many, other than like it. You know, the one that came up was just length. It was a long book. However, I felt like there was enough content to justify the length, because there was quite a lot. You know, and then at points it can be kind of like tedious to read. I think it would be nice to have like, it would be good to actually have like a cheat sheet for this book, and like kind of like a infographic or something to kind of like walk you through things. I think that would have been very helpful. The other one was that, yeah, so some of the lessons, so the amount of techniques in the book, there was a lot. So I feel like it's going to require quite a bit of practice to actually be good at crucial conversations, because I feel like if I were in a crucial conversation, I would know that I'm in one, but I'm not entirely confident that I would have like the recall to remember all of the many steps that are involved into like handling that conversation. And it's going to feel like a little like overwhelming, or at least like frustrating. That, I mean, I know there's a step here, I just forgot what it was. it would be weird to like pause a weird like a crucial conversation and say, okay, gotta check my notes for a second, I'll come back to you. But
Yes.
otherwise I think the book was like we all thought the book was well written and had good content and relatable. So
Do you think, Roy, it's like a question of practice with this? Because there are a lot of moving parts, as you mentioned. It's sort of like you've got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations almost on a semi-regular basis to really get the hang of it.
Maybe. Yeah. Go to a bar and start taking fights just to resolve them. Yeah. I don't know. I'm maybe the other thing too is that because there's so much content, like maybe there was so much content because like there was like 20 people that wrote this book. So it's like there's a lot of scenarios that we put into place. So that's really just the only
I think, Roy, I think you make a good point in terms of like there's so many different paths that you can take it on, and like wherever the other person takes the conversation, you have to kind of be ready for it. It's kind of like a lot like sales in that way. I find that one way is, I know we kind of joke about practicing, but it would not be unusual for us to maybe take a weekly sync meeting when we do our kind of breakout and actually say, hey, let's do some role playing and practice crucial conversations. And you can have your notes in front of you, right? And we'll give you the topic, and not you, like all of us, right? And so I think the way to practice is within the safe space, right? The safe space of us, because the client on the consultation call is going to tell you exactly what they think. But at least if we practice and role play that situation, you can anticipate the 10 different ways it's going to go and be ready for any of those scenarios. So expect for us to do some role playing around this, because I think it's important.
Fantastic. Thanks, Roy. Anyone else from group 3 got anything to add to that?
The only thing that I'll add is that this book, above all the others, allowed me to see things from so many different people's perspectives. So like I was reading this book and thinking about it of the perspective of my kids, and then of my mom, and then of coworkers. And so this one really got me out of my, like, just thinking about myself and how I can do things. It's making me think about the little lawyers at home that are trying to get out of situations or whatever, so it was good.
I love that. It's great. I found that the mindset book that we read also had the same kind of effect there. I found that, it started off, I was thinking about work, but then halfway through the book, it started to apply to all sorts of things within my personal life and my kids, my family, like everything. So it's wonderful when a book that's primarily about business makes that crossover into your everyday personal life. It's enriching.
Okay. Has anyone heard of the TV show The Rehearsal?
No.
While I was reading this, I found it on HBO, and it's basically this guy who, to help people deal with difficult things in their lives or conversations that they're going to have with somebody. For one guy, he had to tell his friend that he didn't have the education that he had said he'd had for years. So they recreated the bar that they go and like do these quiz nights at. Like they built a whole bar exactly the same, and hired an actress to be this woman that he was going to talk to. And she secretly like sort of went undercover to like learn what she was like. And so they practiced it and practiced it and practiced it until he was comfortable and actually had the conversation. Yeah. It's weird, but it's kind of cool.
I highly, highly recommend that show as well. It is amazing. If you're it's with Nathan Fielder. If you've seen Nathan For You,
Nathan For You,
Canadian guy. It's amazing. It's pure comedy.
I didn't know he had another show.
Yeah,
Nathan For You.
All right. Well, thank you. Group 4. What did you learn from this book? Was there an aha moment for you? A concept that changed your perception dramatically? And how will this book influence your decisions moving forward? Who's the spokesperson for group 4?
I can go, unless anyone else wanted to go. We're good?
Go ahead.
All right, cool. All right, so I'll cover mine first, and I'll try to. We all kind of just shared ours. So instead of having one answer, we have like one thing or like key takeaways from each person. So I'll just start with mine and then try to do justice to Vanny and Allison. So my biggest one was the shared pool of meaning. I feel like that concept like apply to something so small and so fundamental. Like we're all talking all the time. But I never thought of it that way, where like when you're talking, you're really just trying to pull your ideas together. I always thought like either you're talking or you're listening. Like it was like it was like on or off. Like there was never like though at least the way that I looked at it, where I was like, okay, you talk and now it's my turn to talk, and or now it's my turn to listen. But like the shared pool of meaning was a very cool concept, because then it sort of makes it more collaborative, just like an everyday thing. Like you talk to people anyway. And I feel like that also changed my perception on all the ideas that they presented after. So when they were talking about like why you should make it safe, it is so that people can fill the pool with like their actual ideas and not things that they think will make you happy, or not say anything and just be silent, or push their ideas into the pool. It was just like a very like a mind-blowing concept, like just to look at like everyday dialogue and like think and have this analogy of you're both trying to fill the same pool of meaning. And how is it going to influence my decisions moving forward? I feel there's just the general awareness that you're not trying to go in and push your ideas or just listen, like you're trying to collaborate on a solution together. Like that's going to be big, because I had an ad puzzle call with Vanny last Wednesday, and I was really excited. I just went in and I just started firing away all my ideas. But I feel like if I had read this book before then, I would have probably like gone and like slower, or like tried to like be more collaborative. So yeah, like that's not a very clear path, but I feel like just the general awareness of what you're trying to do and you're both trying to achieve the same thing is like a huge one. And Manny, do you want me to like say yours, or do you want to say it?
I can go. I think for me, I think there's like it's, you know, I think I agree with everybody who's already mentioned that. Like this book is a lot, they give you a lot of good tips and tricks and guides, but it's still very theoretical, because when you're actually in a conversation, are you going to remember all the tips and tricks, right? So the way that I looked at it, it's kind of breaking it down into steps, right? First thing is that, number one, it's going to be really attuned at listening. And what I mean by listening is not just using your ears, but using your eyes to kind of assess the situation for any changes in tone and feel of the conversation, so that you know something's just changed, right? And in a situation. The second is, rather than reacting either negatively or rather than reacting, period, I would say, is just kind of take a step back and kind of say like, okay, what are the data points I've just observed, right? And it might not just be like, so for example, that I gave to Vasvi and Taliesin was kind of like, let's just say I've had a couple of people meeting with a bunch of people, and my bad, but I've shown up late. So, you know, what I've noticed is that so the person, i.e. in this situation, I'm just going to say it's me, right? I've shown up late for a bunch of meetings, okay? So the other person would be like, the wrong way of the reacting way would be like, you've been like 10 minutes late for the last 3 meetings. I've like had it with you. I'm super pissed off. Like, you know, my time is just as valuable as yours. Like, why the heck can't you show up? That's not a good way to respond to that situation, because I'm reacting, right? So I take back a step, and in my head, I think about, why am I having that reaction, right? It's because I feel like the other person, Vanny, isn't respecting me, right? Like that's the fundamental issue as to why I'm feeling like super frustrated with her, right? So maybe what I would do in the conversation when Vanny shows up to the meeting late and say like, you know, Vanny, the last 3 meetings, like you've shown up at like 9:10 instead of 9. And, you know, and for me, it's kind of frustrating because I've got all these things I have to do in the day. And I just want to understand, like, is there something that's going on, like what's going on, so that I can understand why you're showing up late. Like maybe we need to change the time of the meeting or something else, but I just kind of wanted to get your sense from you as to what's going on, right? Like that way, I'm actually giving context for how I'm feeling and what I've observed, right? So that the other person has a chance to give you context. Like maybe there were legit reasons for why they didn't show up late. So rather than just reacting, I kind of took a step back and sort of said, okay, you know, what is it I want to get out of that? So then the second step then is like, is that recognition of what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it, because then that also helps to inform the conversation. And for me, it's helpful to kind of break it up like that, right? And then the last part of it is, what's the request I have of that person who's late? Like saying like, look, you know, moving forward, it's really important for me that we can kind of, you know, work on that time, that make the most of the time we have together. So should we, you know, reschedule for a different time, or, you know, what can we do to kind of meet our end objective, which is, you know, I don't know, finishing this XYZ project, right? So again, for me, when I look at all the information that came out in that book, I just wanted to break it down into 3 steps so that it's easy for me to remember in a situation, because otherwise there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I think too, the other thing, to your point, Riaz and Michael, is like at my last company, so here's some like a spoiler alert, is that I actually took training it wasn't called Crucial Conversation, it was called Nonviolent Communications, but the basic premises are all the same. And we rolled that out. So all the senior leadership, the management, and all employees across the company got training. Then we also had access to a facilitator, so that when anybody ran into an issue, like I was letting Allison and Busby know, like I kind of banged heads with the VP of sales at my last company. And so my CEO said, okay, you know what, you two, Vanny and Ron, you are going to meet with Julie and you're going to have a crucial conversation, right? But we did this all over the company. Whenever, you know, we noticed there were issues between people, we got them together with a facilitator, and she walked them through the whole process. Because I think that the book is a lot of theory, but actually being able to practice it over and over again is how you build the muscle to have those kind of conversations, whether they're, you know, in your personal life or at work.
What a terrific idea.
It was really helpful, actually.
Love that. Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else want to add anything?
Allison?
Yeah, I'll add my aha moment was when the book mentioned like not mixing up what you're asking for with what you actually want. And thinking about it now, I think it really ties into kind of the shared pool of meaning, because when you're really attached to like your proposed solution, like I'm asking for this in this conversation, and like Vanny's asking for this in this conversation, even if ultimately what we both want is the same thing, if we get really like attached to like my argument and her argument, it creates unnecessary friction. So I think moving forward, it was good advice to realize that it's important to actually take a step back and look at what both parties actually want out of the discussion versus just getting really tied down to what you think you want or what you think is the best course of action. Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
Michael, I'd like to add a couple thoughts. So, you know, when we read this book, and the reason that Michael and I wanted to have this book be kind of the book that we read, you know, in marketing and especially in sales and in business, there's a tendency to choose popularity over accountability, right? And I think, especially for someone like me, I know you guys most of you have met me in person, right? There's a sense of, you know, wanting to get, you know, in people's good graces, but sometimes that happens at the expense of accountability, not just for me, but for a lot of people in the professional world. And I think there's a tendency to believe that if we're not, that there's people pleasing on this side and there's accountability on this side, and it's very black and white, but really it's not, because in the conversations, some of the crucial conversations that I've had with some of you on the team, if you do it with a smile, you create that safe space, you're able to joke about it, you know, like, and get closer to the issue. It doesn't have to be painful. And I think that's really what has helped us in a big way to grow as much as we have over the last few years, because we're not afraid of the issues. We actually put, like, you know, we go full force towards the issues. What do we call it, Michael? We call it, we used to have like a little buzz term. It was like moving towards the issue or something like that.
Yeah.
Conflict something.
Yeah,
something to do
moving
with
towards the
conflict.
conflict, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's the reason we wanted everyone to read this is because, to Vanny's point, you know, there's always little things that are going on, and often it's a lack of communication or miscommunication that leads us to creating these stories in our head about the other person, right? Saying, oh, like, how come they're always doing that person's performance campaigns and not my performance? Or how come that client always is nice to, you know, that person? Or how come when Riaz is in the call, everyone does this, and when Riaz isn't on the call, everyone does that, right? So, you know, like, these things happen in our head. Some of it's true, some of it's not. Somewhere in the middle is probably the most accurate, right? But I think it's an opportunity for us to empower ourselves with the tools to be able to have the conversation, so that we can have fact-based conversations rather than the stories in our head, which perpetuate it, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, Vanny, don't worry, I won't react to your tardiness. You're all good. So if are we done? We're good here, Michael? Because I want to introduce the next book in the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, I believe so. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I'm sure we will keep this alive. We will keep this alive. The book for the next, we call it the book of the month, but it's like the book of the bi-monthly book. Was actually selected by Miss Jackie Jimenez, who's not here. And that book is called Do More Great Work by Michael Bungay Stanier.
Wow, that's an unfortunate name,
isn't it? So this book is all about stopping the busy work and starting the work that matters. And I think there's 3 categories. I won't spoil the whole thing, but there's kind of like 3 categories. There's, you know, bad work, that's time wasting work. There's good work, which is essentially our job, and then there's great work. And it helps us to differentiate between those 3 categories and where to put our attention, essentially. Because if we can eliminate the bad work, then we would have more time to do more great work.
I like it.
Good. So Erica will send out the details in terms of next steps for that. But yeah, we're looking forward to reading that one.
Smashing.
Any final comments, questions about Crucial Conversations? Okay. So how about this as a little bit of homework? Think about, be inspired by Erica Wong, please. And think about that one crucial conversation that you haven't been having. Maybe it's with a peer, a friend, a spouse. Maybe it's with me. Who knows? But think about that conversation, and at some point over the next few weeks, we'll ask about how you did on that crucial conversation that you decided to pursue, and hopefully it ends up like Erica's situation, where you are feeling liberated, and that you didn't botch the whole crucial conversation. But hey, you got to practice to find out, right? So there you go.
You got it. It's true.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone.
Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.